everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. Excuse me. As you can tell by the title of what we're getting ready to watch, this is going to be an extremely triggering vid and is definitely not for children. So, we are going to be watching today some of the true believers, as I call them, of the Drudge Rotenberg Center, who testified on the behalf of the center during the hearings for the FDA ban, which unfortunately has yet to be enforced. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and take a look, and then we're going to talk about it. I'm going to try not to stop the video and not get triggered, but no promises. So let's go ahead and get started.
How's this now? Thank you for letting me testify on behalf of my son Michael, who's a student at JRC. I'm a retired social worker, and I have always had the philosophy that you don't use pain for discipline. But I've come to see that there is a very small population, maybe 1% or less, that has extreme behaviors and needs extreme treatment. And unfortunately, my son fits that category.
Okay, did you hear what she said there? Some people need extreme treatment for extreme behaviors. I wonder if the same social worker would also agree for the same treatment to be used upon prisoners of war or convicted violent criminals. Extreme behaviors, indeed. Let's move forward.
He's for people that have normal children or disabled children that respond to these state-of-the-art treatments. I say God bless. I'm so happy for them. But for us,
Oh, and there we go again. For those normal kids, or people like myself, God bless them. I'm glad those other treatments work. But my kid is so bad that he needs to be tortured in order to be better. I know I keep quoting Metallica here, but the song Sanitarium Welcome Home does apply. Keep him tied, he's getting wet. Keep him tied, it makes him well. He's getting better, can't you tell? Moving forward.
we've tried everything, and you have to believe that we have run the gamut of the treatments that are advocated today. Counseling, lots of medications, day in residential schools, timeouts, everything, because I would let.
She said everything. But it all comes back to the same circle. None of these parents, as though it's never even occurred to them, have never tried to address what's triggering the behaviors. God, how many times do I have to say it? Behavior is communication. Behavior is communication. Something is upsetting that person in order to get such an extreme reaction out of someone. So, the common logic, the thing to try first and foremost in order to stop a behavior is find out what's triggering it, to expand your own mind out of your little neurotypical bubble and think like an autistic for a minute. Which means even with sensory, if they are getting upset when they are eating, you don't understand, but you have to realize all the sensory things that are going on when you eat. What spices is the food made of? What temperature is it? Is the texture of the food painful to the autistic? Because Sensory issues aren't phobias, they cause physical pain or discomfort, and it can trigger behavior. Last night on a stream over at Keeley Talks, I explained a situation where chocolate pudding was causing behaviors out of me. I was throwing a fit, if you will, when I was a little girl. I was crying, I was upset, I screamed. But my aunt continued to force me to eat it, even though it was causing me severe stomach pain and nausea and discomfort. Eventually, my aunt realized her mistake when I puked all over her walls. This is what I'm talking about. When you say you've tried everything, but you haven't tried to look for what's triggering the response by coming out of your own comfort bubble to think like an autistic, then you haven't tried everything. But let's go forward.
Leave no stone unturned before I would let my son have aversive therapy. It's not something that you run to right away. So I don't understand why some people say, "Oh, why haven't you tried this positive behavior therapy?" Because we have tried it in many different places. Um, my son has high functioning.
Again, they say, but we did try it. We did try it and it didn't work. No, dear. The approach of positive behavioral reinforcement is not to force your kid to act as a quote unquote normal child. It is to assist the autistic in better able to understand their surroundings. Now, if you have an autistic who's having behaviors and you're not willing to go search for the trigger that's causing those behaviors, all the positive behavior therapy in the world is not going to do anything to stop it. These parents just, they want the behaviors to stop, but they don't want to put in the work. Let me rephrase that. That came off pretty cold. I realize that now. What I mean to say is they want the behaviors to stop and they're willing to go to extreme measures to do it without it. What's the word? It's not that deep. That's what I'm looking for. It's not that deep. You don't need to be trying all this experimental treatment when the logical, most common sense answer is right in front of you. Behavior is triggered by something. Find that something, and you will then neutralize the behavior. Now, you can sit there and tell me, well, that's easier said than done. What about this or that or this? Again, you gotta stop thinking like a normal person. Oh, I'm going to eat, sleep, and shower. And start thinking a little bit more like your kid. What is all the sensory that is going on in these activities? Sounds, tastes, temperatures, textures. Exactly. Moving forward.
Autism, Asperger with severe obsessive compulsive behaviors and a difficult personality to go with that. So he presents among the most challenging to treat. He is not like Senator Italia's, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, son who has Asperger. Right now he's 24. He's been there for 7 years. Um, it's not that he misinterprets social situations and you have to just teach him how to react appropriately. I mean, I wish that were the case. No, we're talking about severe obsessive compulsive behaviors like drinking 55 glasses of water a day, and then that's life threatening. And then someone may come to the school and hears the staff say, "Oh, no, you can't have any water now." Oh my God, his human rights are being violated.
This woman is obviously not understanding. She's obviously not understanding. Yes, her son's human rights are being violated, not because he's being denied water. It's because he's being electroshocked for things that are out of his control. With OCD, with behaviors that are potentially harmful, I understand that. I understand that. Again, I realize not everyone on the spectrum is like me, and there are varying degrees that affect us all in different ways. However, is the answer to this, is the answer for these kids who can cause potential harm to themselves, is the answer to inflict harm on them in order to make it stop? Because to me, that's the same as a parent shaking a baby to make them stop crying. Maybe it's just me. And yes, I know what I just said is cruel, but I'll say it again so that you can get it through your head. What they do at the JRC in order to stop these so called targeted behaviors is the equivalent of shaking a crying baby in order to make them be quiet and stop crying.
They don't understand, they don't see the whole picture. Um,
Okay, and I get that all the time. You don't understand. You don't see the whole picture. You don't live with us. You don't know my son. Lady, I don't need to know your son to know that strapping him on a 4-point board and hitting him with volts 10 times more powerful than a police taser is torture, okay? You can take your martyr attitude and you know where to shove it. I did say I would try not to be triggered.
but the thing is that what he went through in the past was extremely inhumane. He had lots of medications with very bad side effects. They tried rewarding him with food, and he became obese. Um, he made no academic progress. He ran away, and his life was at jeopardy. I got a call at midnight, "Where's your? We don't know where your son is." He ran away from this place. And these are very good places. So when we agreed to the versive therapy, we didn't know if it would work, and thank God it did work. My son has a high threshold of pain, and a lot of students with autism have a high threshold of pain.
Oh my god, she did not. Okay, truth time. The fact of the matter, folks, is people with autism do not have a high threshold for pain. I actually have an extremely low threshold for pain due to the fact that I'm hypersensitive to touch. This is garbage, folks, and the reason why parents like this say such things is because we are not displaying our pain in a way that they will try and understand. It comes out as anger, it comes out as meltdowns, it comes sometimes out as self injurious. But we do not have these high levels of pain, nor even if we did have a high threshold of pain for pain, is that any excuse towards using painful adversives in order to force us to behave. We no longer use that on regular children, but we want to use corporal punishment and torture on autistic kids? Really? Really, Karen? And that's your only answer. If torture is your only answer, you didn't try hard enough.
So if any of you do get the GED, you have to keep that in mind. I think it hurt me a lot more than it hurts my son, and it didn't hurt me that much. And
Oh! Did you hear that? It hurts me more than I hurt then it hurts my son. Really, lady, have you ever been strapped to that board? Because I beg to differ. That is belittling of the disabled person's experience based on what they had you try out. The fact of the matter is, folks, that when they do allow parents to try out the GED, they usually have it on the lowest setting possible. The highest setting on it is 10 times more powerful than a police taser. They do not allow parents to try it on its highest setting. They are hiding that from the parents. And it is sad that she has bought the Kool-Aid to this level.
I'm kind of a baby in that thing, but we were a few days after he received this treatment, his behaviors went down tremendously, and that was such a relief because we didn't really have any place else to go. And since that time, he's made a lot of progress. He's been able to get his high school equivalency diploma, and he now goes to a community college and takes one course a semester. I mean, his attitude was, I want to do these compulsions. I have to do these compulsions. What are you going to do about it? How can you stop me? And what could I say? Rewards didn't work. You could offer him the moon. It doesn't matter. And consequences didn't affect him either. But this one skin shock, and he knew why he was getting it. And it was painful, but he said it doesn't hurt that much, but I really don't want to get it. And so he didn't really need that many applications over these 7 years. I can, maybe 10 or so over the whole time, and he hasn't had one in a few years, but he still needs it in his program as a supplement. But we have found a reward that he responds to, and that's to get a short haircut. He's not fashion conscious, it's just that his sensory and compulsions, he wants this very short haircut, and that's a tremendous motivator. So that's what we work with now, and then we have the GED as a supplement when he goes off it because he tries to beat the system and say, well, okay, I've achieved my short haircut now, I can relax and go about doing whatever I want to do, and so he may go off it, but then he'll get right back on it shortly after because he knows he has the GED in place. Let me see. Just trying to, I don't want to repeat, there's so much been said that I agree with here on behalf of JRC. I just want to say that I've seen the effects of when some students have that GED removed from their program. There was this girl in my son's class. She was doing very well on it. It had to be taken off because of New York State regulations. She had to be restrained a lot. And because of that, my son's class couldn't go on trips because they needed so many people to restrain her.
Would you blame her? Would you blame her? She wants to leave. Those electrodes are off her skin. She's no longer being tortured. She wants to leave. Who the hell can blame her?
And many times my son can't go on activities now because staff is too busy with this restraining because kids can't have the GED. So I am very opposed to the regulations where it makes it almost impossible to get this GED. Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about it. So this is one of the parents that has really just drank the Kool-Aid. You heard her? We tried everything. We tried positive behavioral reinforcement. First of all, folks, positive behavioral reward, it's not about the rewards. If that was what they were told, then they were doing it wrong. That's not what positive behavioral reinforcement is actually about. In fact, if they were using food in the reward system and they knew it was getting bad for his health, then they were really not going to the right places. Food should not be the only incentives used in such a program, obviously. So, there is that. Number two, like I said earlier in the video, these people say they try everything. But two things on that. Number one, not once, not in a single video done by the JRC, do you ever hear them mention that they were ever tried finding out what's triggering the behavior. Behavior is communication. They say my son can't communicate, I am their voice. Their behavior is a communication. And your job as the parent is to go out of your comfort zone, think a little more like your child, to discover what is triggering the behavior so that it may be neutralized. Now, she mentioned that her son was OCD, drinking 55 waters a day. What have you? Gotcha. Gotcha, lady. But at the end of the day, when we're talking those OCD behaviors, is the answer really using by your own words, an extreme treatment that you would not agree to have applied to violent criminals in prison or people in international prisons around the world? Is the answer really to use a device you wouldn't even think of to use on them? Extreme behaviors need extreme treatment indeed. If that is the case, why isn't every violent criminal in America hooked up to one of these GEDs? I'll tell you, because it's inhumane and the entire world would rise up and protest against it. So, why is it okay for your disabled child because you, the parent, are desperate? So, that's what I take away from this. Now, if that's not your opinion, if you can kind of understand a little bit better than me where Miss Perazzo is coming from, I have no problems with speaking to you in the comments. I always like a civil debate, so please feel free to leave your comment there. I want this to be a safe place for both sides to have a conversation. We've got to start working together if we're going to come up with something else. This cannot be the answer. Torturing kids using painful reinforcement on disabled kids for the way they are born is not an answer, especially when you would not agree to the same treatment being used on prisoners. Okay? All right. So that's all I got for this video this afternoon. Now, folks, as always, we don't get that many views on this channel. The few views that we do get do tend to get removed. So please don't forget to hit that like button. Hit subscribe. Don't forget to hit the comments. Do appreciate your time this afternoon. And as always, folks, we here at Smelling Tea hope you have a good one. Bye-bye.